You know, they say, you mess with the Minotaur, you're gonna get the horns. Tonight, Morning with the Beard, we're reviewing Stonespine Architects. Here we have the table set up for a 3-player game, Stonespine Architects. Stonespine Architects is a card drafting game for 1 to 5 players. The goal of the game is to build the most wicked dungeon in town to gain the most reputation for having the most dangerous dungeons. Players will receive a hand of 5 cards. They will secretly select one of those and pass the other cards along to the left or right player depending on the round. Once all players have selected a card, they will then take that card, which is a chamber that will help build their dungeon, and they will place it in one of the 4 slots in the current row. The game takes place over 4 years or rounds, and in each round you will be adding a row to your dungeon. So by the end of the game, you will have added a total of 16 chambers to your dungeon. Players are trying to have a path along their dungeon, so ideally all the chambers will connect to the entranceway and the exit, because you'll get a point for each chamber that does so. But that's not all the players are concerned with, because there's also a goal card that is different each game. The game comes with a handful of these, so players are trying to, in this case, have the most goblins in their dungeon. And each of the cards will have different elements like traps or victory points or negative victory points or monsters. So once players have drafted 4 cards, they then add up the sum of the gold coins, and that is the money that the players will be able to spend during the market phase. And during the market phase, players will be adding upgrades to their dungeons and their chambers. Maybe you need some more spiked pits, or maybe you need some more ooze. So who knows, these elements can really add a lot to your dungeon and help you out with in-game scoring. So in addition to these gold cards, there are also challenges. So during the market phase, players have the opportunity to, when they're spending money, they can drop out and then take one of these challenge cards. And these challenge cards offer in-game scoring conditions to only the player that has the scoring card. So it can get kind of vicious if there might be a nice tasty challenge out there. Players may opt to spend less money on these upgrades so they can bounce out before the other players get a chance to score that sweet challenge. Now, the market phase is interesting because the player with the most money always gets to go first. But there is a priority track should the players be tied for having the most gold. So it is possible that a player could take multiple turns in the market phase if they still have more gold than the next player. So players would continue drafting cards one at a time for 4 years until eventually the table will look something like this. Here we've gone through 2 years and players have each drafted 8 cards for their dungeons. Did I mention that players also at the beginning receive blueprints? And players will want to follow the guidelines on these blueprints because these can be worth quite a few points if you meet all the criteria at the end. So if you have all 8 of the elements, say here this one requires that I have a mountain region in the upper left hand corner and that I have a cobalt just to the right of an entryway, that's 2 of the 8 different elements here that I can score. Because if I get all 8 of them, I can get 20 points. And 20 points is quite a bit in this game. So in short, draft cards, build a sick dungeon, worry about challenges, buy upgrades for your dungeon, and make sure you follow your blueprints. So that is Stonespine Architects by Thunderworks Games. They knocked this one out of the park again. It's not very often that I see a game and get excited about it, and not only does the game meet my expectations, but actually exceed them. This is a fantastic card drafting game, and it plays quick. It's fairly easy to teach, and the cool thing about it is a lot of the gameplay is kind of simultaneous with the card drafting, so you really, a 3-player game takes the same amount of time as, say, a 5-player game. Despite the game being fairly easy to teach and being somewhat simple, there is so much variety and strategy from game to game because you have a lot of things to consider when you're building your dungeon. For one, you need to keep an eye on your blueprints, and you need to kind of follow those blueprints as closely as possible, but you're also trying to juggle making a pathway throughout your dungeon and connecting all the tunnels as much as you possibly can. But on top of that, though, there's also those challenge cards that there might be one that you've been working towards, but you don't know if you're going to get it. So maybe you play it safe and kind of spread out your strategies a little bit. But there's also the in-game scoring card too that affects everyone, that everyone scores on. So, and there's a ton of these different cards. I know there's like little stacks of every one of those cards mentioned. So every time you play the game, the strategy is totally different, giving the game a ton of replay value. And not only do you have all of those little elements to worry about, at the end of each year, when you've chosen your 4 cards, your 4 chambers, each of them has a different coin value at the bottom. So maybe a chamber that has 4 entranceways, which really works out with your master plan on connecting all these paths, it might only be worth 1 or maybe even 0 coins. So now you're taking a big hit when you get to the market phase. And the market phase also goes in order with the player with the most gold. So, you know, there might be some dungeon upgrade elements out there that you need maybe to help fulfill one of your blueprints, but you also need the money to purchase it, but you also need to maybe have more money to get higher up in the turn order and purchasing these elements from the market. But in addition to that, though, you may not want to be too greedy and spending too much time at the market, because someone might drop out of the market, therefore getting first dibs on one of the challenge cards that you may need. So there's just a whole plethora of things. Yet I feel like I haven't seen any players really come down with too bad an AP on this. The game just runs at a nice click, and it is just a fantastic card drafting game. There's really not much. I mean, if I really wanted to nitpick, the art is amazing. It's fantastic. The only thing, if I really wanted to nitpick, is maybe the art is a touch dark on the dungeon cards, but then I feel like an idiot for even saying that, because it is a dungeon. Was it going to be this brightly colored dungeon? Meh. Thematically doesn't make any sense. But speaking of those dungeon cards, all of them have like little neat details, you know. But like the first time you might notice one of the cards, oh look, this one has little blood splatters all over everywhere, you know. It's just kind of a neat little Easter egg that all of the cards are different. I don't think any 2 cards are identical. It's a nice little touch that they did to make all the cards unique. Now, the copy I played was a prototype, so some of the elements and components may be subject to change, but from what I hear, this is pretty much the final product. And check the description for a link to the upcoming Kickstarter page, and definitely don't miss out on this one. It is a fantastic card drafting game. Definitely staying in the Beards collection. And if you found this episode entertaining or informative at all, please consider clicking that subscribe button, and thanks again for watching.